You know, out of all the systems in our body, muscles are probably the most relatable. I mean, everyone's felt sore after a workout, right? But today, we're going deeper what makes skeletal muscles tick, and why should engineers care about biomechanics?
Exactly! It's wild when you think about it. Muscles aren't just about flexing at the gym. They're these intricate machines that let us walk, jump, even blink. And for engineers, understanding how muscles move and generate force is key to everything from designing prosthetics to injury prevention.
That ties into how we're not just talking about muscles in isolation, but how they work with tendons, how we can measure what they do, and even how technology helps us solve the problems muscles face.
Plus, it's not just theory. There are real quantifiable parameters like extensibility, elasticity, and force that we can measure, test, and use to improve how we move or even recover from injuries.
Before we can measure anything, I always like to start with a quick anatomy refresh. Like, what exactly is a muscle, and what parts matter most when we talk biomechanics?
Honestly, at the most basic level, each muscle is made up of these super long cells called fibers. They're surrounded by membranes and, together with tendons, form the muscle-tendon unit. And the cool part? Each fiber can be as long as the muscle itself.
Yeah, and it's those muscle fibers, not just the bulk of the muscle, that really determine how force gets produced or how fast we can react.
And let's not forget, these fibers grow with training. Bigger fibers means stronger muscles because you're packing in more proteins and contractile elements.
Okay, so now that we know what we're dealing with, let's talk about how muscles actually behave. I mean, what makes a muscle special compared to, say, a rubber band or a piston?
It's all about extensibility, how much a muscle can stretch, and elasticity, or how well it snaps back after being stretched. But there's more. Muscles also contract, producing force, which neither rubber bands nor pistons can do quite the same way.
And when we stretch a muscle passively, like when someone else stretches your arm for you, it's not just about length. It's about how fast and completely that muscle returns to its resting state, which is where recovery speed comes in.
That's actually what separates healthy muscles from ones that are prone to injury, the ability to recover quickly after a stretch. And as engineers, we need ways to put numbers to that, not just vague descriptions.
I've always wondered, how do you actually measure something like extensibility or elasticity without going all mad scientist and damaging the muscle?
Range of motion is a big one. You can use a goniometer, that simple protractor-looking tool, to measure joint angles. Or, for a high-tech spin, you can analyze video footage to track movement and calculate stretch.
For elasticity, it's trickier. You want to see not just if the muscle returns to normal, but how fast. Some researchers use EMG to watch electrical activity. When it settles back to baseline, you know the muscle's recovered.
Right, and the fun part is dreaming up new sensors non-invasive, ideally to make these measurements more accessible and precise. It's all about quantifiable data.
Funny thing is, we can actually model muscles using familiar engineering concepts. Ever tried picturing a muscle as a set of springs and resistors?
That's the trick. Simplify the biological complexity. So, in these models, the resistance part mimics how the muscle resists being stretched, while the elastic elements act like springs, pulling things back to normal.
And when you throw in the contractile component, it's like the muscle's internal engine, a bit like a piston or a battery, generating force and movement.
Exactly, and by representing muscles this way, we can predict their behavior under different loads or conditions, super helpful for designing devices or rehab plans.
What really interests me is that muscles aren't just one big elastic band. There's this whole idea of parallel and series elastic components. Can you break that down a bit?
Sure. The parallel elastic component comes from the muscle's cell membranes. Think of it as the muscle's built-in stretchiness. The series elastic component, on the other hand, is mostly from the tendons.
So, when you stretch a muscle, both the membrane and the tendon contribute to how the muscle returns to its original length?
Exactly. The two work together to store and release energy, which helps us move efficiently and protects us from injuries when we overstretch.
That actually reminds me, none of these properties matter unless a muscle is activated. What's the journey from brain signal to muscle contraction?
It's all about neurons. Your brain sends an action potential down the spinal cord, out through the motor neurons, and straight to the muscle fibers. Once they get the message, they contract.
And there's feedback too, right? Sensory nerves send information back up to the brain, so it's this constant two-way street.
Definitely. That feedback is crucial for fine-tuning movement, balance, and responding to changes, like stepping on something sharp or lifting heavier weights than expected.
Measuring muscle activity isn't just about watching someone flex. EMG comes up a lot. How does that actually work?
EMG, or electromyography, picks up the electrical signals muscles produce when they contract. You can stick electrodes on the skin non-invasively or even insert them for more precise readings.
And when you pair that with EEG, which tracks brain activity, you can see how quickly the brain's message turns into muscle movement. It's like timing the postal service between your brain and your biceps.
Plus, classic tests like the knee reflex with that little hammer, that's measuring how fast and effectively your muscles respond to sudden stimuli. Engineers love quantifying those reaction times.
You know, when we talk about force, it's easy to just imagine lifting a dumbbell. But muscle force gets complicated fast, especially when you factor in fatigue.
Totally. Muscles generate maximum force when they're at just the right length. But as you keep lifting or sprinting, the muscle uses up oxygen and builds up CO2, and that's when you feel your muscles stiffen up and lose power.
And that's not just discomfort, it's actually your body protecting itself. If the muscle can't relax, it risks damage.
Exactly. That's why athletes and engineers alike are obsessed with tracking max force and time to fatigue. It helps optimize training and prevent injury.
What surprised me most is how our muscle fibers aren't all created equal. Can you explain the difference between fast and slow twitch fibers?
Sure, fast twitch fibers contract quickly and generate a ton of force, but they tire out fast. Slow twitch fibers are more about endurance. They activate first, work longer, but aren't as powerful per contraction.
And those motor units, one neuron connecting to a bunch of fibers, are the building blocks of movement. The number and type of fibers each motor neuron controls actually affects how we perform, right?
Absolutely. It's why sprinters and marathoners have different muscle makeups. Plus, after injuries, training can help rewire the spinal pathways and regain function, which is just incredible.
Speaking of performance, I keep hearing about concentric, eccentric, and isometric contractions. Can you give some real-world examples?
For sure. Concentric is when the muscle shortens, like when you curl a dumbbell. Eccentric is when it lengthens under load, say, lowering that dumbbell back down. Isometric is holding it steady. The muscle doesn't change length but is still working hard.
And understanding these isn't just academic. It directly relates to preventing injuries, especially those nasty ACL tears when athletes stop suddenly and overload the muscle tendon system.
Exactly. Athletes need to know their isometric max, the greatest force they can handle without changing muscle length, to avoid pushing past their safe limits in sports.
That leads us into something a bit sneakier: active and passive insufficiency. Ever tried flexing your wrist and fingers at the same time and suddenly you just can't move as far? That's it, in action.
Yeah, it's your muscle's way of saying, sorry, I'm at my limit. Two joint muscles can't stretch or shorten enough to move all the joints fully at once. It's a built-in limitation, and martial artists actually use this knowledge to control opponents.
But the cool part is, with technology, EMG, sensors, imaging, we can objectively study these limits, track how muscles behave, and tailor rehab or training for each person.
And as we wrap up, that's really the big takeaway. It's about using technology to measure, model, and improve how our muscles and ultimately, we move.